guys, it's your girl Melissa Diaz here, and welcome to my channel. So Giselle's due date was Christmas, December 25th, and it all started for me on December 15th. I had some Braxton Hicks contractions, and if you don't know what that means, it's pretty much just contractions that come, and it's not the real thing, but you definitely feel pain every certain amount of minutes, but it's not consistent. So my contractions started in the morning of the 15th, about like 5 a.m. and they were pretty bad, but not awful. So I would have a contraction and then I would time it. So I would write down when it started, and then I would write down when the next one started, and the next one, and the next one. And I would be able to see how much time each one had in between each one. And I noticed that it was kind of like 13 minutes apart, 7 minutes apart, 20 minutes apart. It just didn't follow any type of specific pattern. So I knew I wasn't in labor. So then on the 16th, I had more contractions, and they were just the same thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, when are these gonna get closer together so I can go to the hospital? But they didn't, and it just kept happening, and it was getting annoying because contractions, obviously, as some of you know, they're not easy. They definitely hurt, and you just want them to like get closer together so you can make it to the hospital. If your contractions aren't close enough together and you go to the hospital before you're ready, then the hospital will send you home. They're going to be like, you are not in labor, go home and come back when you are. On the 17th, in the morning, around like 3 a.m., I started feeling worse contractions. Now these were different than the contractions I had been feeling for the past 2 days. These ones were like, take your breath away, you can't really talk through them, you can barely stand up contractions. This started when I went to use the ladies' room, and while I was in there, I got contraction that just made me like, ugh, like yell out. And I called for my husband and I said, babe, I'm having a really bad contraction. And then I went back upstairs and I told him, babe, I think it's time. And he's like, really? Are you sure? And I said, yes. So we had already had our bag packed for the hospital for myself and my baby's bag. We had 2 separate bags with tons of stuff in each of them that we thought was necessary for the hospital trip. So the whole ride to the hospital was very painful. I was obviously having contractions. Now these contractions were very close together. I would say they were like 5 minutes apart, 4 minutes apart, pretty much like that. And they hurt very bad. So I knew that it was time. Once I got to the hospital, I was checked in, and they could tell I was in really bad pain, because when one of the nurses came in, she said, do you want the epidural? And I was like, yes. I was so surprised that right away they asked me if I wanted the epidural, because I definitely did. So they had hooked me up to some monitors, and on a screen you could see my contractions. It was like up, down, and the spikes were very high, so you could see how bad my pain was. And I was like, see, I really am having contractions, and no one doubted it, but for some reason I said that. As the contractions were coming, I was just praying that the epidural would come quickly, because I knew that would help my pain, obviously. They told me that I was 2 centimeters along. So I was told that if you're not at least like 5 centimeters, you get sent home. But I think because of my pain, and I guess maybe I was progressing quickly, or they felt I was going to be progressing quickly, they let me stay, and I proceeded to progress at the hospital. I was moved into a separate room. As I'm laying in the bed, feeling everything, I'm just waiting for my epidural to come. And at this point, I had progressed from 2 centimeters to 5 centimeters. And once you get to 10 centimeters, that's when it's time to push. So I was halfway there. The epidural people, doctor, whatever you call it, they came in. And I'm saying they because it was one man accompanied by an older man, and they both came in together. So pretty much, I kind of had an idea that one was like a resident doctor, and the other gentleman was supposed to be overseeing what he was doing and helping out if necessary. And that is exactly what the case was. So the younger doctor was performing my epidural procedure, and he found a spot on my back to insert the needle. It hurt very bad. I had to sit on the edge of the bed, bent forward, and he was inserting the needle, and he was supposed to be administering the epidural medicine through it to take the pain away, to pretty much numb me from the waist down. After he was done, I was laying there and I still felt the contractions coming. And I let them know that I still felt the contractions coming. And he was like, "You do?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And he was kind of concerned because I'm not supposed to be. And he said, "Oh, maybe it's gonna come in soon. Maybe it's just taking a little while to work on you." And I was like, "Okay, sure, whatever." But the contractions still hurt. So then he asked me again a little while later, and I said, "Yeah, it's not it's not taking the pain away. I still feel the pain." He could tell by my moans, that I still felt the pain. So he amped up the dose and added more. Then used a sharp tool to touch me up here, and he said, "Can you feel that?" And I said, "Yes." And then he touched on my leg and said, "Can you feel that?" And I said, "Yes." And then he was like, "Ooh." Well, you could tell on his face that something was wrong. So I was concerned myself, if he's concerned, I'm concerned, Eventually, I started feeling my right leg and my right butt cheek getting numb. Only my right butt cheek and my right leg. And definitely that's not how it's supposed to go, So then he leaves. Eventually, the epidural doctor came back in, and he could tell that something was wrong. It wasn't working, and he figured that he put it in the wrong place. So then he said, "I'm gonna go get someone else," and they brought in another epidural doctor. So one man comes in by himself, so that led me to believe that he was more experienced, which he was. And the nurse whispered to me, she was like, "He knows what he's doing, he's good at this." And I'm like, I wish the first person was good at this. So this doctor that came in, he informed me that he was going to have to take the epidural out of my back and put a new one in. And I was thinking, oh my god, this sucks, because the first one hurt so bad, I don't want to go through this again. But obviously there was nothing else I could do, so I sat forward again, let him put the needle in my back. But honestly, this time it didn't hurt that bad. I don't know if it was because a little bit of the epidural had worked, or this guy just was more experienced and knew what he was doing, so he just put it in a better way. And after a while, the epidural started working. So yeah, I had to get the epidural twice, which sucks. But at least it worked, so that was great. Once the epidural was flowing through, the contractions no longer hurt. It was like a blessing. It was amazing. I was so happy. And they gave me a little button that I could press, that if the pain started coming back, or if I could feel anything really, I could press the button every so often, and it would administer more medicine through the epidural that was still inserted into my back. After a while, I was just chilling. I was just laying there. I wasn't feeling any pain. But eventually, I started feeling pressure down below. I first started feeling pressure in the area that I'm going to be pushing the baby out of. And I informed the nurse, and she's like, "Oh, that's good. That means the baby's getting lower and lower." And I was like, "Yay!" I was excited. Then after a while goes by, I started feeling more pressure in the downstairs region in the back. And yeah, that's what it felt like. And so I then told my nurse that I wanted to get checked, because it had been a while since they checked how dilated I was. So the nurse said, "All right, we're going to come and we're going to have someone come check you to see how dilated you are." So I was just like, okay, let's see. Who knows? Maybe I'm 7 now, maybe I'm 6, whatever. We'll see how dilated I am. So they check, and then she goes, "All right, you're 10 centimeters dilated. It's time to start pushing." And I was like, what? Really? It had only been a few hours, not long at all. I guess I went from 2 to 5 to 10, very fast. So yeah, it was time to push, and I was ready to go. When it was time to push, I had my best friend's mom, long story, but my best friend's mom holding my left leg, holding my left foot actually up, and then I had the nurse holding my right leg up and my foot. And so they were holding it kind of up and back so I could get ready to push. And it was just us in the room and my husband in the room, just kind of like off to the side, but he was seeing everything that was happening. So I was pushing as the contractions were coming. Since I couldn't really feel them, I could feel the pressure, but I couldn't feel the contraction. So I would look at this monitor, and once it went up, it would say, oh, you have a contraction, so now it's time to push. So I would push when the contractions would come. When I started, like, I've never given birth before, so I felt like I was doing a lousy job. So I told the nurse, I was like, I'm sorry. And she's like, why are you sorry? And I said, because I don't think I'm doing good. And she was like, no, you're doing great. Like, you really are. And I just felt so encouraged by her. I felt a lot of encouragement by her and by my best friend's mom, because they could see what was going on and I couldn't. At this point, I couldn't see anything down there. But they just kept claiming I was doing good, so that made me feel motivated to keep pushing. So then, we take a break, wait for the next contraction. They pull it up again and I push more. And then the nurse says, I'm gonna go get some equipment, and she tells my husband to hold my right foot so I can do some pushes with him. And so while she's gone, I do some pushes, and my husband like lets go of my leg and goes, ah! And I was like, babe, what happened? I thought like he got hit with something like liquid or something. I didn't know what happened, but he was like, I saw the head. And I was like, that's what's supposed to happen. But he was like shocked. Later, he let me know that he said that because he thought the baby was going to come out before any type of doctor or nurse was in the room ready for her, like to receive her. So I understood what he meant by that, why he was shocked. And so, once the nurse returned, she grabbed my right leg and my husband went back to just kind of watching, and I was pushing more, and she was just like, you're doing great. Oh, this is excellent. Then she's like, do you want a mirror? Do you want us to bring in a mirror for you to see what's going on? And I was like, yes. I wish I saw from the beginning because I would have known what was going on. Once she brought the mirror in, I was like, okay, it's go time. Like, I'm ready. Because I could see literally hair. Like, you could see dark hair down there from the baby. So my legs were up and I was holding under my thighs, which really, really helps. And I was pulling back. Once he started holding my thighs and pulling back up towards my like shoulders pretty much and putting my head down, it was kind of like the perfect position for the baby to come out. When I saw, I was just pushing, and I was holding and pushing more because I could see her head crowning and coming out. So then, once her head really came out and I had that final push, it was really like a little head come out, and then the rest of her body just like kind of like shot out, literally like it was so fast. And they immediately took her and put her right on my chest. She was still covered in all that stuff, and I had that skin to skin moment,
just like you've been doing. Go 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 go.
So good.
Yes, yes, sweetie, you did it. You did it, honey.
No, just
And
listen.
then little
Can I have a baby
small
nurse?
pushes, okay? Little
Yep,
small
you
pushes.
did it.
Take a
Oh,
big
you're
breath
doing it
and
right
small
now.
push again, okay?
There you go.
Yep, you got
You're
it.
gonna feel such
Big deep
relief
breath
any
and a
second.
nice push.
Such relief.
Oh my goodness.
Relief, isn't it?
Baby.
Isn't that,
Very good.
doesn't that feel
Congratulations.
fantastic?
Oh my God.
Congratulations!
You love little one. Let me get a towel. We'll dry her all off.
Definitely a curly put down right there.
so it just felt amazing. I was just really, really in shock. I just felt like I couldn't believe I did it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it. I just kept saying stuff like that. And yeah, that was it.